Rotogrinders, Dean here, Dean7904. That is the daily fantasy handle around the industry. It's the flagship show here at Rotogrinders called Grinderslive. Not messing around on a hump day. We got the big old slate, 3-man booth, not a ton of time for pleasantries because we got to get through this in an hour before I turn it over and hand it off to Crunch Time, the premium show. It is a 9-game slate, a big boy. But let's do say hello to TJ, who is, man, we learned pre-show. We know it's cold up there in Canada, TJ, but man, you are freezing pretty good. Thankfully, you have your toque on to keep you somewhat warm.
I got my toque, my beanie. Yeah, it's like it's with the wind. It's like a -30, -35 outside right now. It is cold, so yeah, I'm not going outside. I'm chilling here with you guys.
And that's in American or that's in Canadian? Is that Celsius? Is that Fahrenheit?
It's both. As soon as it gets in the negatives that deep, they start aligning the same. So
oh my gosh, I can't even imagine. Well, thank you for joining us. Do you have any general thoughts as far as this slate tonight? It's not as simple as just play 4 or 5 Warriors and just like figure it out. Play, spend up on some good players, but and of course there's plenty of stuff we're waiting on. Obviously, it's the NBA, it's the association. Some players are questionable. This stuff may change, but general thoughts as far as the slate before we fully break down and dive in and do it game by game.
Yeah, so I was looking at it, and I think I'm only going to play one lineup tonight because I have a flag football game later, so I actually do have to go outside and venture a little bit. Is it
indoors or outdoors?
It's an indoor game. It's an indoor game, but I'll have to go outside and start my car early to get there. So only playing one lineup tonight, and it seems like for such a big slate, we got some big chalk. So only playing one lineup. I think I'm going to make it more tournament centric and see if we can get off that a little bit.
Let's also say hello to Will, Chief Justice. You guys know him from his prop shop here. Of course, the prop shop doesn't cost y'all anything. Anybody can join in the Discord channel, Rotogrinders Discord, right? Rotogrinders.com/Discord. Hit up the prop shop. It's right above the live stream chat channel. That's where you guys can talk to us during the show. If you're watching us on the various platforms, if you're on YouTube, do hit that like button, do subscribe, do turn on those notifications, and fire up those questions as well. And producer Steve will be compiling them and throwing them my way. Will, if you have any props, obviously today, that's one of your main focuses. Feel free to share that with the people. Of course, you're going to give us your DFS thoughts as well. But how are things in your world? I guess you're warmer than TJ, if nothing else.
Listen, I'm warmer, and I like cold weather though. I don't want to be in the -34 range, but I do enjoy cold weather, and so
positive or -34, anything, yeah.
Well, I don't want -34, but yeah, I'm glad to be on. Good, TJ. Glad you're not shivering while you're on the show. I thought I saw icicles growing down the back of his neck, but there weren't any. I kid, but yeah, I'm glad to be on. I think it's going to be.
That's just the long hair from not going outside to get a cut in the pandemic.
I wouldn't get my hair cut either if it was -34. Yeah, Luca's wearing a tuca tonight. That's our catchphrase. Luca in a tuca.
Luca in a tuca.
Yeah. And anyway, I think it's going to be a good slate. I'm with you, TJ. I love tournaments, and man, when you get so much chalk, if you will, I think just a good play is always going to go overlooked on almost every slate, really. Especially when you've got it, like this. I don't want to spoiler alert. Wendell Carter Jr. is going to be fairly high on. Spoiler alert, I'm going to hit the X button, but we'll get there when we get there.
He's not going to be vengeful tonight, right? He's not playing against the Chicago Bulls. We do have a potential, I think it's a first blood revenge spot for KPJ, Kevin Porter Jr. Against Cleveland. So that's kind of
okay. Full disclosure, I did a video today. Kevin Porter Jr. was in the video, and I did not think at all, like this is how good he's played over the last stretch in terms of, dishing the ball. I did not think at all KPJ revenge. I thought, shorthanded Cleveland, KPJ's going to have a good game. And then someone had to remind me after they saw the video, like, yo, I love this KPJ revenge. And I was like, oh, yeah, it is revenge. So, yeah, it should be a fun night.
He seems like a guy that would like that, too. I don't know if you were watching the game the other night he had the audacity. I don't know, audacity is the right word, but he was brazen enough to talk smack to Steph Curry. And Steph, put up a 40 spot on him. But, he probably seems like a kind of guy that likes the concept of revenge and then things like that.
I will say this. Steph put on a masterful performance in that game. If you didn't watch the game, I would encourage you to just go back. Don't worry about the first half.
Yeah.
Just watch it from like mid third quarter all the way through. Steph went from like 10 points to like 40 points in a matter of 9 minutes. It was insane. I mean, I was looking at the game. I said, man, Steph's having a really tough game. And then he hit a three. And he hit another one. Then he hit a step back. And he hit another step. And I was like, wait a minute. 3, 6. I mean, he just kept firing. And before I knew it, he had 40 points. I said, man, I mean, the guy can just score. He can just score the ball. It is what it is.
Again, sleeping giant. The KPJ kind of sort of woke him up to kind of nudge them a little too hard, I think. By the way, let's just do a quick peek as far as the ownership projection. This is as of like a half hour ago. This stuff is going to change, but our biggest ownership projection on FanDuel today right now is Jetty Osman, 54%. Bogdan Bogdanovic is at 38%. Of course, both those teams are dealing with injuries. We'll talk about that. Josh Giddey price on FanDuel is still too cheap, so he's 35%. Jumping over to DK, yeah, we have Jetty Osman at 48%. I don't understand the Wendell Carter one at 29%, and I agree with your first thought there, Will, because I think he's a fine play, but 30% Wendell Carter, I can do without that. Isaiah Jackson, we're kind of sort of waiting to see how that turns out with Indiana. Things crack his way. He looks like another strong play. And the big spend that's the popping the most is Luka Doncic at 26% on DK in the absence of not just Porzingis, but THJ, Tim Hardaway Jr., and also, a phenomenal matchup as well against OKC. Potential triple-double on layaway there for Luka. So I think he's probably the best premium spend. We're waiting on Jokic in the back-to-back. He's questionable once again with his toe. It's on ESPN. I think it's an ESPN. Is that an ESPN game? Maybe I'm wrong. Well, I'll check in a second. I thought that was a national TV game. He's probably going to play. Yeah, that's in Utah. I believe that's the second half of a doubleheader. He's going to play. He almost always does. All right. TJ, anything else before we dive in and break it down game by game?
No, let's do it. I'm getting cold just sitting here not doing anything.
If you feel like doing laps, like just kind of walking around the room, just going to keep your body moving, that kind of thing. What's that heating bill look like? How many loonies and toonies does that cost?
It's nothing too crazy. Like, I think it's like 100, 200 a month, I think.
Oh, it's not bad at all.
Ask Dean how much his dial-up internet and house phone costs. While we're at it. I'm currently hardwired in. This is not dial-up. This is not AOL or CompuServe for the olds out there. All right. First game on the slate, Washington, Philadelphia. I believe there's 2 games at 7:00. Yeah, that's the first one we're going to talk about. Washington, Philadelphia, 213.5 is the total. Philadelphia is an 11.5 point favorite. Washington, of course, tonight playing on the back-to-back. They did lose Thomas Bryant. Hopefully it's not a big deal. Just came back from his big knee injury. Now he's out with an ankle, which thins out the center spot, which can kind of sort of be somewhat interesting. As far as Philadelphia, we're getting Joel Embiid back from his rest. Furkan Korkmaz is still out. I'll throw it to you, TJ, as far as this, Washington, I guess, Gafford and the other center, I'm losing his name for some reason.
Harold.
Yeah, Harold. I couldn't think of him in my head. They're both kind of sort of somewhat interesting. And then, they're probably going to split those 48 minutes as far as the center. It's hard to go small against Philadelphia with the combination of Drummond and Embiid. And we got Gafford at 3-1 on DK. We saw he was the first guy he was DNPCD, but then he jumped right in to take the place of Bryant. So he could be kind of interesting at 3-1. Of course, we know about his history of getting in foul trouble. We know how Embiid can draw fouls too. Those scenarios, it looks poor. But again, if he plays 25 minutes, playable. Talking about the Washington side, and of course the other part, we saw Dinwiddie kind of flop in the absence of Beal. He usually thrives last night, but his price is still pretty good. And we saw Kuzma crush. Both those guys get elevated. I'm not worrying about Aaron Holiday if he starts, anybody else, but I think it's about Dinwiddie, Kuzma, and the centers are both interesting as well. What say you as far as Washington?
Yeah, that's the same page with me as well. I think Dinwiddie is just so darn cheap that I have no issue going back there, even though he wasn't very good last game. He started like 0 for 8 or something like that. Positive regressions heading his way. Yeah, I like, even though Harrell is cheaper on DK, I actually like him a little bit more on FanDuel where he's more expensive just because he has that power forward eligibility.
Mm-hmm.
Gafford at only 3-1 on DK is definitely worth a few shots. Kuzma on DK, I definitely don't mind. Like he's shown he has a crazy high ceiling. That price tag at 8.3 on FanDuel though, I don't think I'm going to be able to get there on a slate this big.
Yeah, it's tough, and I'm checking the ownership here as far as Kuzma, if it's reflective of that price. And yeah, we're looking at, I mean, it's probably going to be higher than the 1% we have it projected at, but it's not going to be. It's probably going to be in the single digits. Had a nice game. Yeah,
like I said, I'm only playing one lineup tonight. But if this was a night that I was mass multi-entering, if Kuzma is 1% and that lasts till lock, then I'm probably trying to get 3 or 4% of him in my 150. But only playing one lineup tonight, I won't be able to get to him.
Yeah, and you can say Harold's the power forward eligibility, it matters a lot. The flexibility is huge. On DK, Harold, you don't have the same sort of deal. He's center and center only, but he is 4-4, which is, kind of an appealing price. Obviously, we've seen his upside. You catch him on the right night. I think we are. What are we projecting? 25 minutes for Harold, and we're projecting how many minutes do we have for Gafford? Yeah, 23. So we are. Yeah, we're splitting him at 48. That kind of makes sense, and it's hard to predict how it's going to go. Will, your thoughts as far as Washington, and then feel free to jump over to Philadelphia.
Yeah, I mean, I'm with you guys. I think Dinwiddie just had a rough game. On DK at 5,800, 19%. I'm willing to continue to invest in that price for sure. Kyle Kuzma at 75. I don't hate it. Philly is a hefty favorite in this game, but I'm not really deterred. I think a big play here is going to be Montrezl Harrell coming off the bench, 25 minutes with upside for 30. Like, I don't think he gets there. Let's maybe say upside for 28. Let's go 28. That's probably more realistic if he's really playing well. And so I think this is a game where he could really get going, because they probably will need his scoring off the bench for sure. But Dinwiddie is still my top play at 5,800. I just think that's a really good price for a guy that just had a rough game without Beal in one particular game, when all season he's proven that if Beal's off the floor, it's pretty much 35 plus fantasy points. So like that. And then, inversely, Tyrese Maxey is overpriced at 7,500. And as a result, we see he's not going to have much ownership tonight. Joel at 12K. Man, I love Joel. I think Joel is going to, he's probably going for 60, right? Does he have more upside than Luka tonight? Maybe, maybe not. All things equal, I think I still side with Luka with the discount. Does he have more upside than Harden against Sacramento? Probably not. So Joel is just kind of going to be in no man's land. And when he's like that, I think if you're multi-entering in tournaments, get you some exposure. Like, I don't think it's going to hurt you to get 15% Joel tonight. And if he happens to go off for 70, that might be enough, to overcome some of these other big performances.
Yeah, and
so like Embiid's only 10-9 on FanDuel, and the thing that I feel like on DraftKings is, what I like about him a lot as a contrarian option is, if you're not using that spot on Gafford, who's super, super cheap, one of two things is probably going to happen. Either Gafford is going to play 25, 26, 27 minutes because he matches up way better with Embiid than Harold does, or Gafford's going to end up in foul trouble and Harold's going to have to be the one out there. And Harold's like 6'8". And so Embiid is going to absolutely dominate even more than he usually does. So you have to think either he smashes or Gafford does well.
Yeah, Harold's an energy guy. He can't make himself taller. He can't make himself any bigger. And like the Harold Gafford thing's interesting, because absolutely Gafford can go out there. We've seen it many times this year, not many, but enough, where Gafford gets 2 fouls in the first 3 or 4 minutes. For the record, we're assuming Gafford's drawing the start, nothing official there, but it just kind of makes sense. That's kind of how the season's gone. I know he was the MPCD when Brian came back, but he was the first guy that jumped in and took a spot, and Harold generally comes in as a 6-man off the bench. But we can see a 28-20 split as far as Harold versus Gafford, both those guys over a fantasy point minute in the season. As far as Embiid being back, that ruins and mucks everybody else on Philadelphia. Everybody else in Philadelphia is priced up because they all thrived in the absence of Embiid. You talked about the price on Maxey. I just can't get there. I can't justify that. If you're running 150, whatever, if you want to get a pinch. But TJ, you got anybody else that's interesting on Philly besides Embiid? Because I don't.
No, like you said, if I'm playing lots of lineups, yeah, I'll mix. Actually, no, I won't mix Maxey in, because he doesn't do what he does when Embiid, like he did last game when Embiid's out there. So No, nothing else I really like tonight. Maybe on FanDuel, if you're playing lots of lineups, you can take a shot on Seth Curry. Yeah, same low fives on DK. If you're playing lots of lineups, you can take a shot on Seth Curry. But other than that, nothing for me.
Orlando, Indiana, 226.5 is the total. Pretty hefty number. Orlando is a 3.5-point dog. The Magic are pretty healthy. Healthy they've been pretty much the entire season. As far as Indiana, not the case. We know they're without Brogdon, they're without Turner, they're without Domantas Sabonis. Gogo Batadze, another big, is out. And Oshae Brissett is currently questionable. We have Brissett in. So we have, he's actually kind of sort of somewhat playable if he does go. If he doesn't go, we'll see the same scenario we saw last time where Isaiah Jackson, who's like, there is some draft equity him is a first round pick. We saw he got unleashed. He absolutely crushed. And Indiana, a team that's going nowhere, they're probably going to be moving one of these pieces. They're blowing up. Maybe Sabonis, maybe Brogdon. Who knows? Somebody goes. They want to see what they have, and I'm like, why not? It's a lost season. That's kind of sort of where they're at right now. He is $6K on FanDuel, so kind of reactionary there, TJ. On DK, the price a little bit more appealing. I believe he's 5'4" over there. Pulling it up right now. Yeah, 5'4" on DK. We currently have 28 minutes projected for him. And again, that's assuming Brissett plays 24. But and he's also been a really strong fantasy partner with a guy, good usage guy in a small sample. But I'll go right back to Jackson. I don't think it's a chase. I just think he's a good play and they want to see what they have in him. And who else is going to do stuff for them? LeVert, obviously, but yeah.
Yeah, I agree completely. And like on FanDuel, I'd only touch him, I think, if I'm playing more than one lineup just because of that price set. But on DK, he's still a great play. If Brissett is in and starting, I would like Brissett. If he's not starting, I would still be cautious there just because Jackson's been playing well. But Brissett is out. There we go. So then, yeah.
Well, there you go. Jackson season, man. It continues.
Isaiah Jackson season continues. And then, yeah, that solidifies him a little bit more to like him even more on FanDuel. I don't think I'll get there, but if I do, then if like he lands in a lineup, I'm not going to be upset about it.
So on the season, Jackson's averaging 1.32 fantasy points per minute on FanDuel. That's a monster number. Again, it's not a huge sample, but it's what we have. He's probably going to play about 30 minutes or so, and he's 6K. Like, why don't you like that? You're not saying it's terrible, but why don't you think that's
good? I do like it. And if I was playing more than one lineup tonight, just playing one tournament lineup, I'm not sure if I'm going to get there. But in terms of looking at, I guess we're going to have to probably wait for his projected ownership to update with the Brissett news. But at 22% ownership, like we have projected right now, I think I'd probably be even to the field on that number.
Will, your thoughts here as far as Jackson season? Looks like it's going to go down once again. And there are some tertiary or peripheral pieces, secondary pieces like Duarte and Lamb and Craig that can benefit to some degree. And of course, the big spend is LeVert. You got to pay for him, but he's the guy that runs the show in the absence of everybody. Your thoughts as far as the Pacers?
Yeah, I mean, I think at 5,400 on DK, what was more impressive for me is that he took 19 shots. Will he take 19 this time? Maybe not. But at this point, I think maybe I bump him down to 15. 15 in my mind seems reasonable. He's not playing some juggernaut team. He's playing Orlando. So, I think Jackson to me is probably good chalk. I don't feel like Wendell Carter Jr. is as good chalk, right? But Jackson with such a massive discount at 5,400, if he puts up 40, I mean, that's right in the wheelhouse for helping you win tournaments, even at hefty ownership, right? And I think we've seen it time and time before. The way you win tournaments is not a lineup full of 3% players. It's a lineup full of, guys that have really good point per dollar that hit some ceilings. And then you take those one or two guys that nobody's thinking about that hits the ceiling as well. A la a big time player in a good spot that's maybe overpriced like Jason Tatum. As an example, I'm not saying I'm playing Tatum, I'm just using it as an example. So
there were a lot of heavily owned Warriors yesterday that landed in tournament winning lineups.
Well, but they were all cheap though.
No, I'm just making the point. Like some people think, some people think, oh, I can't play that guy because people are going to have him.
Right.
Baseball, different conversation. Basketball, there's a reason why they're 50% owned.
Right.
Yeah, it's
right.
lineups, not players. But you go ahead.
Yeah, for sure. So, I like Isaiah Jackson. I think he's going to be fine. Levert at 8,200. I don't mind rolling the dice on him against Orlando. I think he's going to be fine as well. So, a lot of, I think at least those two guys for sure should be in good spots. It looks like they're not planning on playing Dwayne Washington 30 minutes anymore. I wish they were, but he is playing about in the mid-20s. I do think he's sneaky against Orlando. Teams that play bad defense, I don't mind squeezing in some Dwayne Washington at 3,700. And let's see how it goes, right? He could be the guy that comes off the bench. He gets 28 fantasy points tonight at 3,700. We're getting close, right? The closer he gets to 30, the better off he's gonna feel for you in your lineup. So I like those handful of guys from the Pacers.
What do you have as far as the Magic? And we're projecting 36 points for Carter and 6.2K on DK, which is why he's popping. I feel like that's a little strong. He can get there, of course, but yeah, I'm a little lighter on that in my head.
He's got the minutes. But once again, like I said, this is a spot where I'll just hit the X button. Like, I don't know who's going to win this game because both teams are bad, but he's been playing great. So I don't want anybody to think this is about, do I feel like Wendell Carter Jr. is a bad play? No. This is about saying, hey, I've got to eliminate some guys. And so he's going to make my short list of inflated ownership investments that I'm just going to scratch off. At 6,200, yeah, on DK. At 6,200, I think the price is fine, but I don't feel like I'm going to need Wendell Carter Jr. to win a tournament unless he goes postal. And I don't see that happening today.
And that's pretty much where I'm at as well, too. Especially, if he lands my lineup, so be it. But I think I'm okay if I don't play him. TJ, your thoughts as far as the Magic? Anything else in this game you want to clean up?
Yeah, I agree with Chief that Jackson on DK is good chalk. And I think the reason I'm not getting to him as much on FanDuel is just on DK. You see that there's a $2,800 difference between Jackson and Levert. And on FanDuel, it's only a $1,600 difference. So I'm getting a Levert a bit more just because I don't think I want a ton of Pacers in my one lineup. For the Magic, I think tonight is a very easy night if you're playing lots of lineups to just get lower than the field on Wendell Carter Jr. and get higher than the field on Mo Bamba. Anytime Mo Bamba is in the mid 5Ks starting and less than 1% owned, that's a guy I love getting to 5, 6, 7 times the field. Not in every lineup, but just in like I said, 5 to 10% of lineups because he's a mid 5K guy that's volatile and he has a 50 point ceiling.
All right, moving on. Charlotte at Boston. This one's a tough one, man. I feel like I should like more than I do. 223.5 is a total here. Boston, 6-point favorites against Charlotte. Charlotte pretty healthy. Oubre is going to be in with his ankle. We are without Gordon Hayward, but otherwise, Jalen McDaniels is out too. And the Boston side, Robert Williams has that toe, but he's expected to play. Schroeder's got the Achilles, expected to play. So Boston is fully healthy. Chief, this is your Hornets, right? Man, what do we think of this game? Because from what I'm seeing as far as ownership, and 18% for Jaylen Brown on DK. It's a fine price at 8.7, but nothing spectacular. On FanDuel, the biggest guy popping for us right now is Rozier. 6.8K. It's at 15%. Like, whatever, that's fine. But there's no reason to say that's an amazing play. I don't like this game. As a general thought, of course, in tournaments you can sprinkle and yada yada. Feel free to tell me otherwise. What do you have here, Chief?
Yeah, I think on the Charlotte side, especially on DK, pretty much everybody's going to be mostly a scratch off, and it's mainly just the pricing. That's all it is. If Rozier was 6,300 and LaMelo was 8K or 8,200 and Bridges was 74, I'd have more interest, especially with Gordon Hayward still out. But with these guys at these prices, I just don't think I can do it. If there's anybody I'm going to play, it's probably Kelly Oubre at 5,400. And not because he put on a 40-point performance, it's just because he gets a lot of minutes off the bench. And he gets a lot of shots off the bench. And if he's hitting shots, he's going for 35 plus fantasy points. If he's not hitting shots, then he'll like. So for instance, if you look at his game log, last time out against Boston, played 25 minutes, shot 50% from the field, 30 fantasy points. Plays OKC a couple of days later, shoots 3 for 14, 20 fantasy points. Plays Atlanta, 5 for 13, 18. Plays Toronto, 3 for 11, 15. plays Indiana, 12 for 18, 58 fantasy points. You get my drift. If he's hitting shots, it's on. If he's missing shots, well, you see for yourself.
I wish Charlotte was running a little bit more concise rotation. We're projecting 9 guys. We've seen like before, they kind of basically play 6.
James Borrego was part of the Greg Popovich tree of coaching. That's all you need to know.
Yeah,
you may not get great rotations.
Yeah, like the Ish Smith and like the book night minutes are just like they're just pushing. You're not playing them, but they're pushing down the ceiling of some other guys, right? That's kind of sort of where I'm at. But
all day.
Yeah, you catch them on the right night, I suppose, but it's just hard to project. What do you have here, TJ, as far as Charlotte versus Boston? Just the game as a general thought. For me, like I don't know what else. What can we say? Like, yeah, if you want to play Jaylen Brown, have at it. If you want to play Tatum, sure. But like, there's no specific reason why. Oh, this is an amazing spot for either one of those guys.
No, it's a bit site dependent for me too. Some of these Charlotte guys are okay on FanDuel. If you're, you can take shots on LaMelo Ball at 8,800. You can take shots on Cody Martin as a value at 4,400. Like we're projecting, I don't think Cody Martin is a great play, but we're projecting Chetty Osman at what 50% ownership and Cody Martin at 5.
Yeah,
you're telling me it's impossible. It's if these today happens 10 times, Osman's not outscoring Martin 10 times more. You know what I'm trying to say. And so that's an okay place to go. On the Boston side, I don't mind Tatum. 9,800 on FanDuel. I like him quite a bit there. Robert Williams has a bit of sticker shock, but he's incredibly low owned. And this guy's got a wild ceiling. Mm-hmm. It's not like Charlotte typically does well against big guys. Williams is a guy that could grab 15 rebounds and block 5 shots in this kind of game. So in tournaments, if I'm playing lots of lineups, I definitely want to get over the field on Robert Williams.
Your one lineup on FanDuel, the likelihood of anybody landing on that lineup in this game. I know it's hard to say, obviously, but
if Tatum or Williams get there, I like the rest of my lineup, I'm good with it because they're low owned and I like their upsides, but they're not going to be my primary targets.
Yeah, like you're probably not starting your one lineup with them, but if it's like that's the last thing that fits and like you like everything else around it, you're not blowing it up. Is that fair to say?
Exactly, yeah, because I do really like those guys as lower owned, high upside options.
All right, Memphis, New York, 217 is the total. This is the first half of the ESPN doubleheader. We got Ja Morant in the Garden on ESPN on national TV. Just been incredible. Memphis has been getting healthier. Obviously, they're still without Dillon Brooks, and we have Steven Adams, who just tends to go tough guy, but he's currently questionable with his ankle. As far as New York, I believe New York is just fully healthy, right? I don't think you're missing anybody, which makes them kind of unappealing. I'll throw it to you, Will. As far as Memphis and New York, start whichever side you want to start on as far as this game.
Let's start with Memphis, and I will revisit this Boston Charlotte game momentarily. Jason Tatum has been sitting at 4.5 assists. I would hammer the over in this game. We took him at 4 the other day. He's been, hitting at 5+. I mean, pretty heavily in the past few games. Having the ball in his hands a little bit more. Just wanted to put that out there. And then another video play. That wasn't in the video, but I did want to put it out. It's still a play I like. It just didn't make the cut this particular video. Another one I like, I'm taking Julius Randle. We took him over rebounds the last game because he was facing Sacramento at 8.5. He's up to 9. We're taking the under here against Memphis, who's been a really good rebounding team for the league. They're like 10th in rebounds in terms of opponent rebounds in the league this season. So
what if Adam sits?
Doesn't matter. Like they've been rebounding really. Here's why it doesn't matter to me if Adam sits. Brandon Clark's going to play, or Xavier Tillman or Killian Tilly. One of these guys are going to play, and Mitchell Robinson really affects Julius Randle's rebounds. So now that Mitch Rob is back, right? Julius just doesn't have the same rebounding upside, and so I'm still not going to be afraid of Randle, hitting a really high number here. But for what it's worth, I think Steven Adams plays, and now that I said that, he's probably not going to play, but I do think he plays.
Tends to.
Yeah. So but I'm with you in terms of the Knicks. Don't want to play anyone, especially now that Randall just doesn't have the upside right now for he's just playing poorly. So I'd rather take a wait and see approach. I do think Ja at 10-5, point guards have had their way with a couple teams this season. The Knicks are on that list. The Lakers are on that list. I love Ja Morant here at 10-5. The projections aren't going to agree with an upside game, but we know the upside this man possesses. If he hits the 30 real point mark tonight, he's probably going 60 plus easy. So he's one of my favorite tournament plays, coming in at a lofty 2.9%.
Yeah, him and Bane, I think, are interesting tournament darts. Like you said, I'm looking at both DK and FanDuel as far as ownership, and the biggest number we have on FanDuel is Bane at less than 4%. Biggest number we have on DK is Ja at 3%. He's hurt a little tick that Ty Jones is back. They're getting healthier. He probably loses a minute or so as far as projection, which we saw him playing 37, 38, 39. We're projecting now for 35. I think that last game went to overtime. We're looking at the game log. It's why he's in the 40s. Yeah, and if you want to play the narrative, Ja on ESPN in New York and the Garden and yada yada, I can buy that. But and Triple J, I think is kind of sort of someone interesting. If Adams doesn't go, you'll get some run at the 5 that boosts his upside. But TJ, otherwise, this game is it's not that appealing. Not for me.
Triple J is interesting on DK, and Ja Morant is the reason why I don't think I'll get to Jason Tatum tonight.
Yeah.
I view them both as nice lower owned high upside plays, and I view them very similarly. The difference is Tatum's probably going to be about 15% and Morant's probably going to be sub 5. So it's going to depend a lot on lineup construction for me, but I really like Ja Morant as a low owned option just because he's one of those guys that his ceiling is just as high as anyone else on the slate, and he's 3% owned right now. That's ridiculous.
Yeah, I mean, New York plays slow, obviously, which hinders the upside to some extent. But yeah, if you want 3% Ja on this slate, I'm probably going to make a Ja lineup as well too. And if it goes up to 6% or 7%, whatever, that's still fine. That's not going to chase me away. It goes up incrementally. But otherwise, you got anything else, or is that basically it? It's Ja, Triple J, possibly if Adam sits, and moving on.
That's basically it. But there's another thing I wanted to note is just I've touched on this a lot this show, and anytime you're playing you're MMEing, you're playing lots and lots of lineups, whether it's 20, whether it's 50, whether it's 100, a guy like Ja, and anytime you see 3% ownership, anytime a guy has that high of upside, just double that, get 6%. That's how you get different than the field, and that's how you get a big advantage. Is just anytime a guy whose ceiling does not match up with his upside, or sorry, his ownership.
No, understood. All right, we'll move on. Next game is Cleveland at Houston. This is a game that DFS is going to love to some degree, at least. 219 is the total. Cleveland is a 4-point favorite on the road in Houston. Of course, we talked about him already, Jetty Osman. Why is he popping? Well, we have Darius Garland not playing basketball tonight. Of course, Laurie Markkinen out. Rubio's been out for a while. Sexton out for the entire season. We saw. I thought it was going to be Rondo potentially drawing the start. Goodwin maybe drawing the start, but they unleashed point Jetty Osman. It didn't go that great for what it's worth, but we're assuming he's going to start once again. I think he had. I saw it in Meansy's article today. There's 16 or 17 potential assists in that game. No, he had 16 or 17 and Giddey at 16 or 17. We'll talk about them in a second. But, the other part of it is some of the guys you're passing to aren't necessarily the sharpest of shooters, but still the upside was there. The potential was there. Osman the ball in his hands a ton. He's facing a fast, inept Houston team that turns the ball over a lot, not good defensively. The price is not adjusted. I'll throw it to you, TJ, because is the Jetty Osman, is that good chalk? I think if he starts, I feel pretty good. I feel really good about it. But there is possibilities for the hook with Rondo and Goodwin lurking if things aren't going well.
He is a absolute cash game lock, and he checks every single box except for the ownership one. It's just he's a great play. He absolutely should hit value and could potentially 7, 8, 9x his price. But does he do that with in comparison to that ownership? Is he going to do it that often? I just feel like I have to get underweight on that.
Yeah, 4-6 on DK, 4-4 on FanDuel. It's not just Jetty, by the way. Like Evan Mobley is 6-9 on FanDuel. That's a really solid price. Obviously, Goodwin is the floor. He's 3-5 on FanDuel.
And 4 on DK too at 3.
What do you need for him? Like, if I told you he got you like 20, you probably don't play him, right? What's the number you need to justify the roster spot, the opportunity cost of taking that roster spot? What's the number you want to play Goodwin?
At least 25, but you probably want 30.
Yeah, that's kind of where I'm at as well. And is Rondo, I mean, you're playing one lineup. He's probably not in your one lineup. If you're running 150, you're getting a pinch because, he still on occasion shows flashes. They don't seem to want to play him a ton of minutes. He's still old, obviously. And then Jared Allen and Love and Mobley all have good matchups. They eat each other to some extent, but do you have a preference amongst those three bigs?
Yeah, Mobley on FanDuel just because of the price, even though like his ownership's up high. But again, like that's just one of those plays that if you're playing cash tonight, that's one of the first ones you're probably going to plug in that power forward position. Allen's got a nice high upside, but this one kind of depends for lineup construction for me. Like if I do play a Ja Morant tonight, then I don't care if I play Chetty Osman because I'm getting sub 5% Ja Morant. If I'm playing the chalky expensive guys, then Osman's probably somebody I'm going to want to get away from. So just keep that in mind when you're building your lineups. Plug them into cash games, but be wary in tournaments. I don't think I'd want to be putting Goodwin and Osman in the same lineup in a single entry tournament just because they project well.
Anything to add? Anything you differentiate there, Will, as far as Cleveland, or in the interest of time, you can just jump over and talk about Houston. Houston, really the most interesting piece is KPJ on FanDuel, 5% ownership there. DK, we have a pretty good price on Jayshawn Tate, 4.8K. So he's going to garner some ownership, but less than 10%. And that's just where we're at. 6.6 on KPJ, like a 2% ownership. I don't hate that as a tournament dart. I think that's kind of interesting, actually. I'm probably going to have one lineup with that and run it back with a couple of Cleveland guys. What do you have here, Will?
I actually really like this game. And so KPJ was my other video investment here. That was the 2-for-2 power. Randall under 9 rebounds, KPJ over 6.5 assists. Here's why, though. This isn't a normal Cleveland team. Cleveland is short some bodies. And so, I know Kevin Love's going to go out there and score some points, and Jared Allen's going to score some points, and Evan Mobley's going to score some points. But I think not having Darius Garland is a big deal. And I've been watching, the Houston Rockets play here recently, and they've been playing a lot better, right? Blowout City hasn't really been Blowout City recently. They've been hanging in there. And so with that being the case, with them being slightly shorthanded, I'm very interested in this game as a whole, right? So if we look at the game, we've got ownership on Osman, and we don't really have ownership on anyone else because of the prices. And so I'd be willing to play some Osman. I'd really be willing to play some Kevin Love tonight. Here's why. I'm rolling the dice and hoping that at 7K they give him another 33 minutes. If Kevin Love gets 33 minutes, he's going to destroy this team. And so it's really more so about speculation. And so this is a risky play. If it's your single entry lineup, I don't think I'd do it. But, in multi-entry, I'd probably be up to about 20% Kevin Love for me tonight if I were building 150 lineups, just because at that price, at 7K, him getting 30+ minutes to me is a big deal against a team that he should be able to rebound and score the ball at a pretty good clip. So it's risky, yes, but I'm willing to roll the dice on a play like that for him when Jetty Osman is 35% owned, and you're pretty much getting no ownership on anybody else in this game outside of Evan Mobley, right? I mean, the whole game, like Kevin Porter's on the other side, he's 1.9%, Jalen Green 2%, Christian Wood is under 1%. Like this is a stackable game to me. And I think I've talked about this before in terms of how I like to build. If I'm going to stack a game, let's take the worst defensive team and stack that game, right? And I mean, listen, in my tournament years, that's how I've really taken out a lot of tournaments in NBA. And I'm not talking about their whole lineup, but 2 or 3 guys from one side, 2 or 3 from the other. And let the chips fall where they may. I like this spot with low ownership on Houston, high ownership on Osman. This game screams stack to me.
I couldn't agree more. It screams stack or fade to me. It's if you're playing the the high ownership Osman, then run it back with those Houston guys, exactly like Chief said. I love that.
Gafford is starting, by the way, as we suspected. Anything else there, TJ? You want to move on?
No, let's hit the next one.
Yeah. OKC Dallas, low number 207. Dallas, of course, big favorite here, 12-point favorites. Despite the fact they're going to be without Porzingis and THJ. OKC pretty healthy, of course, with the absence of SGA, Isaiah Roby. Otherwise, they have plenty of bodies. We've talked about Luka a couple times throughout the show. You know, we know how he's going to thrive in the absence. I ran the court IQ before the show. In the absence of Porzingis and the absence of Hardaway, kick those guys off the court. His usage goes up. His fantasy points per minute goes up. No surprise there. And as far as OKC, we know the deal with SGA when he's off the court. Giddey is going to thrive. DK got that memo. Fandle did not. Fandle, he's still way too cheap over there at 6K. I know they're big dogs, but still, like 6K for him just seems like a wrong price. Of course, you cannot play him in tournaments. We're looking at 38% as far as ownership. Luka 21% on Fandle. On DK, we're seeing Luka at 30%. TJ, what do you have for me as far as this game?
So I feel like I'm supposed to love Giddey. I'm playing FanDuel tonight. I'm playing one lineup. He's underpriced. There's no SGA. But at the ownership he's getting, it feels like somebody I want to get away from a little bit. And it's not because he's not a good play. He's a great play, but he's projected 30% own. And against a team as slow as Dallas, a huge spread, it seems like a good fade spot tonight just because 30% own is a lot. And the median projection is great, but there's a lot of chance that this ends up being a game that could be a blowout and he doesn't get there. So I think I'm currently leaning on fading Giddey in my one tournament lineup. But
so if you're doing that, do you cross out Luka as well? Like you play them both or you play neither, that kind of thing?
Yeah, I think that's the same way I'm going. And I think I would, if I played cash games, I'd probably be playing both of them tonight.
Yeah. But tournament wise, you're taking a stand because you don't need it necessarily, but it would benefit Luka for the game to stay close and have him play, 38 minutes or so. Can he get the job done in 3.5 quarters? Of course he can. And if they blow OKC out, it's probably because Luka had a very productive first 3 quarters, but you want to get the ceiling at that last few minutes as well. Will, are you taking a stand as far as Giddey and as far as Luka as well? DFS is another guy that kind of sort of just somewhat works. His price is pretty cheap, a good defensive matchup. He's going to be out there for 30 plus minutes or so. Not just great fantasy point minute guy, but 4.2K on FanDuel. Again, just make stuff work for you. 4.4 on DK as well.
Yeah, 0 Giddey for me. Not playing them tonight. Dallas has been, a fairly good defensive team here recently, or over the last maybe 20 game stretch or something like that. I think I'd have to go back and check the numbers specific. They're not directly in front of me. It's just you look at this stuff all day, but they've been fairly good defensively. Without I was about to call him Ja Morant, but without SGA, this team just does not pack the same scoring punch or any punch for that matter. So I don't want to play anyone from the Thunder. Do I think Luka can get there in 3 quarters? Absolutely. Do I want to risk it? No. I'd just rather take my discount on a Tatum or Ja, James Harden, Kyrie, like all those guys have, slightly lower prices than Luka. It's not like I don't think he's going to get there. He's going to be fine. It's just, does he go the distance? And I think the answer is no on that.
I'm in the exact same boat there because you just look at the ownership differences. And sorry, Dean, I keep cutting you off every
you're
time
fine.
after Chief talks. Chief makes a great point and it sparks ideas in my brain. Luka's probably one of the first games you put into cash games, just like Josh Giddey is on FanDuel. But I look at this and I see Ja Morant with 10 times less ownership than Luka Doncic for $1,000 cheaper. It just makes me want to go Ja Morant. I see James Harden $700 cheaper for half of the ownership. And so those type of things just really make me want to go away from Luka Doncic tonight, even though he has our second highest projection on the entire slate. The ownership is along with it. And the ownership just isn't touching some of these guys who have similar ceilings.
Do want to mention, if you guys are watching on YouTube, hit that like button, subscribe, turn on notifications, hang out with us in the Discord channel, Rotogrinders.com /Discord. Hang out in the live stream chat channel. That is not a premium channel. That is a free channel. Anybody can hang out there, just like anybody can hang out with the Chief and his prop shop. The prop shop talks, well, they talk props. They talk about prize picks, amongst other things. If you guys are not on prize picks, use the promo code Grinders. First deposit, 100% deposit bonus up to $100. There you go. Will, do you happen to have any for the people today? Any specified, I don't know if you gave any to producer Steven. I don't know if I might have missed that message or no. Yes, maybe, possibly.
Well, dude, I've been handing props out the whole time. Remember, I talked about my video prop were the main two with Randall under 9 rebounds and KPJ over 6.5 assists. Those are my staple two. If you're on prize picks, I have staple ones that I use. Here's one that you probably, so some of these are first half. Shout out to my boy Nards. He's got a sheet that will pretty much do all the work for you. You just have to identify it, look at the matchups, and lo and behold, you have it. But Mike Conley, under 16.5, first half fantasy points, hammer the under. What's the guy's name from Philly? The point guard. Tyrese Maxey, 8.5 first half points, not fantasy points, first half points, hammer the under. With Embiid back, it's not happening. Torrey Craig was at 19.5 points on FanDuel. Full game, I took the under. Cole Anthony at 8.5 points first half, I took the under. So these are some staple props that we kind of just have in rotation. And I mean, they've got about a 70-80% hit rate. If you play them every day, you're going to be fine. So please look for those. They should get you across the finish line.
If they want the rest of them, hang out with you in the prop shop though, over there again, rotogrinders.com/Discord, Chiefs prop shop. It's right below the live stream chat channel. If you guys are asking questions in the channels, the producer team's pulling them. We're going to do our best to get to those. End of the show, of course, 9-game slate's a little bit trickier. Time gets squeezed. Let's move on. Speaking of time getting squeezed, Brooklyn, Sacramento, 232 is the total in this game. Brooklyn playing on the back end of a back-to-back. Sacramento is a 5-point dog. It's a big old number. James Harden expected to play with his hand. We know Durant is out. LMA not playing. Millsap not playing. Sacramento, as it's been the case for a while, De'Aaron Fox is questionable with his ankle. Terrence Davis is going to be out for a long while. And Marvin Bagley is still out. This game's kind of lost on this slate, TJ. It's a big number. It's a big total. You got to pay, obviously. Halliburton, you're getting full price for him. Better price on FanDuel is on DK. You'd prefer one of the guys, Irvin or Harden, being out. Of course, KD is out, so it makes it a little clearer path to the top as far as big spends. But I don't think any of them are like the best. Like as far as big spends, they can get there. But it is, in theory, supposed to be a good game here from a DFS perspective. But ownership not necessarily reflecting that.
So this is starting to get interesting to me. My gears are kind of turning of how I want to build my lineup tonight. And I don't know if this is going to be the way it goes, but I see Luka as one of the highest projected owned spend up options for tonight. And I see Giddey as one of the highest owned mid-range options. Harden has the highest total of the night and is cheaper and at half the ownership. And I see a guy like KPJ who, even though it's not the quite same position, we want to play a lot of Cleveland guys. Maybe I'll just play KPJ instead of Josh Giddey and James Harden instead of Luka Doncic. And we really don't have to get that much different than here in the rest of our lineup.
Instant tournament winning lineup.
There we go.
You did absolutely nothing.
Yeah, like it makes logical sense, and the ownership's not going there.
Will, what do you have as far as this game? Ownership wise, we're looking at no higher than 14% on DK for anybody in this game. That's currently Kyrie Irving. On FanDuel, a couple guys, Halliburton at 22% on FanDuel. I think that will go up if Fox is out. 17% for Kyrie, 13, 14% for Harden. He played his full minutes. It was a hand, whatever. He's fine. I think it was kind of a blowout too, so he got lost maybe a minute or two. Chimezie Metu is kind of sort of somewhat interesting cheapie if you want to fire for a cheapie, but otherwise, that's this game. What do you have here, Will?
Here's what I will say, and I think this is very interesting from a tournament perspective, and it's all about the mental side. I know we got to go, and I say this probably almost every show, but I'm telling you it's the truth. If James Harden was playing at 7 o'clock, he'd probably have double the ownership. James Harden is playing at 10 o'clock, and the novice player wants their instant gratification of fantasy points and flames showing up on their computer screen or phone. So as a result, we're going to get Harden at much lower ownership. Now everybody's saying, well, Luka's playing late too. Yeah, he's playing at 8:30, which is right after the first set of games. Their projections are similar, right? Similar enough. And Harden probably has a better chance to play longer because Sacramento is going to field the NBA team tonight. And Brooklyn has not been playing great. So I'm expecting Sacramento to be in this game. Harden at 9% on this slate, on DK, feels like a mistake. Kyrie's at 14% at 10-1. Kyrie has nowhere near the same upside as Harden, and there's only an $1,100 gap. I just don't understand why we're not playing more Harden here, unless we feel like he's going to sit on the back-to-back, which I highly doubt.
He said he's going to play. At least last night he said it. Of course, things can change, but the expectation is he's going to play tonight. Interesting how the slate kind of lines up. We have games that stop at 8:30, like this game number 6, I guess, is played at 8:30. Then we have an hour and a half break. 3 games at 10 o'clock, and one of those we might need. Who knows what kind of clarity we get as far as Jokic. This is the back half of the ESPN doubleheader. He played last night. Didn't play a ton of minutes because it was a blowout. They got walloped. They're in Utah. 220.5 is the total. Of course, Utah has 10 bodies. It currently at 10. They could go down to 8. Jingle and Joe out for the season. They're still without Whiteside, still without Mitchell, still without Gobert. Dan House is in health protocols. Trent Forrest is questionable, and Jordan Clarkson is questionable, which can make it, a 10-man down to an 8-man. We're currently projecting Trent Forrest starting for what it's worth. I'd assume he turned to Jordan Clarkson pretty quickly. TJ, and this is also 2 different sites, right? You're playing on FanDuel. Utah prices are really appealing. Less appealing on DK. What do you have?
Yeah, they're beautiful on FanDuel. And the more I think about it, the more I really like just late loading tonight's slate. I know we're in a hurry, but touching on that last game, especially if Fox is out, you have it's the best game stack spot on the slate because it's the highest total, it's a low spread, and nobody's playing it. Moving it on to this Utah side, it makes the last game even better as well, because if all of a sudden we get Jordan Clarkson out and we get Nikola Jokic out and we get Aaron Gordon out and we get DeMarcus Cousins out, all of these guys who are questionable, there's no better value on this entire slate than from this game. If all of a sudden we get Zeke Naji starting at min price, that might be the best value play on the entire slate, but everybody else is busy playing 50% owned Chetty Osman from the first game. So I love this late set of games because we got the high total Brooklyn game we can build around. And then we have this one as well, who, if the news breaks our way, great. And if it doesn't, there's still cheapy pieces in these 3 games that we can build around anyways.
Chief, your thoughts? And of course, Jokic, I assume Jokic is going to play, but who knows? We'll see. He's always in play. And you look at that Utah team and who's going to stop him. But find me the guy, Azubuike, Pascal. Who are they going to throw in him? Royce O'Neal, good defender, but Jokic is going to do his thing. Lineup construction thing, obviously. Will, what do you have for me as far as this game?
Yeah, it's Jokic, and that's pretty much it.
The Utah side, you're out on?
Yeah, I don't want to play anybody from Utah. Not on DK anyway.
Okay. Yeah, it's different on DK.
It's not very interesting for me.
Yeah, and because I glossed over it on this Utah side, Bogdanovich is a cash game lock on FanDuel. He's 5,200. He's way too cheap. Yeah. The ownership, it goes with that. So again, that can be an easy tournament fade if you want to get different, just because he's scoring dependent. He could go 0 for 15. It's not likely, but it could happen. And he's projected 30-40% ownership. So yeah, that's a guy could potentially get off of in tournaments, but cash game staple on FanDuel.
More expensive on DK, but I think Bogdanovich and Clarkson are still in play. Even Conley in play. I don't like him as much as Bogdanovich and Clarkson. And I think you could play Pascal at 3K, still minimum, especially if one of those guys gets ruled out. He's going to play minutes probably in the mid-20s or so. But yeah, I'm surprised. Will, just nobody just crossing them out, huh?
I'm crossing out everybody. Conley 7K. Trent Forrest is at 3K. Don't care. Bogdanovich 6,200. Royce O'Neal 44. Nope. Azubuike 3K. No. Jordan Clarkson 6,400. No. Rudy Gay 4,500. No. I'm just not interested in the Utah Jazz. It's just Jokic, and that's it.
Maybe I can interest you in some Portland Lakers, 223.5. It's a total Laker. Lakers are 4-point favorites this game. LeBron not officially out, but he's doubtful. Davis expected to play with his wrist. Monk has a groin. He should be good to go. As far as Portland, they're without, the usuals, Lillard and Nance and Zeller and Little. Ellaby is available for what it's worth. Watford is questionable for what it's worth. They're back up 5. All right. Well, you like Portland and Lakers. Go.
Yeah, I really do. I think this is a good game, especially with no LeBron. Malik Monk at 5,300. He's 26%, but like this is one of those spots where I don't mind getting really aggressive for him. A 5,300 Malik Monk, right, and a 5,400 Isaiah Jackson. You get what I'm saying? Because I can possibly get 40 fantasy points out of both of these guys. So I love using these two guys as pillars for my DK Mass multi-entry build. And then, I don't think I want to play CJ 81. I think that's just a little bit too much. Simon's at 65 is just okay. But Malik, I think, is one of my favorite plays. Yes, I understand that Anthony Davis is bad. However, he's probably still the best scorer on this team from the wing position outside of Carmelo coming off the bench. And that's saying a lot because Russell Westbrook, while he may still be, doing everything he can to try to prove that he needs to be in LA, he's still inefficient, and that hasn't changed since OKC. So I think Malik Monk is in a good spot here against Portland. They're going to need him to score the ball. I'm looking for at least 20 real points from Malik.
The studs on FanDuel are much better price for the Lakers. The ownership reflects that. Davis at 31%, Westbrook at 21%, not as high on DK. TJ, your thoughts as far as the entire game?
So for the entire game, I love what Chief said about Malik Monk on DK. I think he's a great play there. Not as good on FanDuel where he's priced up. But this is my first time doing a segment like this on the show, so I'm happy we get to add it in. But my
I can set it up. Yeah, I didn't want to cut you off, but yeah, I was going to set you up for end of the show, but I should have asked.
It's here. We only got 2 minutes left, so let's just bring it in because it's from this game. So a new segment we're going to have is TJ's superhero play of the day. For those who don't know, I also host the superhero movie, Star Wars, stuff like that podcast called Agents of Fandom. And we're going to have the superhero play of the day, which will be always from the late slate of games. It's the person who will save you when your lineups are back against the wall and you need somebody to come through. And tonight, that's Anthony Davis. He's a cash game staple for me on FanDuel. He's going to be the first person in my lineup. And on DK, I love him as a tournament option. He's low owned, priced up at 10.6. People are going to be rushing to play Embiid or somebody cheaper there. Maybe they're waiting for Jokic. If you have Jokic in your lineup, he gets ruled out. AD is an easy swap. I love him tonight.
You've been here for 2 months maybe, and on the shows, and you get your gimmick right away. I've been here for years. I have no gimmick. I have no graphic. I'm sorry.
7777777. Come on, Deed, stop it.
You got so many things. You talk about people's body parts all the time.
Right, body parts, exactly.
Yeah, but I don't have a graphic. Where's my graphic? I was very angry at Devin, and I'm like, well, I need my mush play today or something like that. But,
what we need is the back of a CPU with an actual phone cable plugged in for your download. That's your gimmick.
Hey, we were talking about the Discord channel. I didn't talk about this. We do this like 3 times a week or so, randomly giving away. Just join the conversation. Join our Discord, rotogrinders.com/Discord. We're giving away 1 week free of RG Premium, not just basketball, but all of the sports. Producer Devin swooped in and just hooked up Eagles Nation 83. I presume he's made contact. He's going to give you access to everything we offer here. Too much to get into. We don't have the time for it, but you can. Now you have access to watch yourself some crunch time, which is coming up in just a couple minutes. As far as some questions that we have compiled, let's try to do these as efficiently as possible. We have to turn this over to the next show in just a second. Anyone like Fournier as a pivot off of Bojan? Anybody think it's a Fournier night?
No,
Never Google Evan Fournier.
I do not think it's an Evan Fournier night. I think I saw another question in there about Kemba as well. There's just too many healthy bodies for New York right now. I don't have a lot of interest.
That's kind of my thought process. Well, Bain, specifically TJ's, this is for FanDuel. You like that Desmond Bain?
He is not going to make my my one lineup tonight, but projected for under 5% owned. If I'm playing lots of lineups, I definitely don't mind getting over the field there.
Okay, whoever can get
I like
to this
Ja
one,
better though.
whoever can get to this one first. You have $4,600 on DK. What's a good play? I already have Jetty in the lineup, so give me your best $4,600 utility spot play on DK. And as you're doing this, anybody like Davion Mitchell if Fox is out? Davion Mitchell, anybody?
Mitchell is fine if Fox is out. I haven't seen his price, but just as a player, I've liked him. That spot on DK, I think the best, quote unquote, best play would be Montrezl Harrell there. But I actually don't mind putting in Royce O'Neal there just because he's at the late game. He's a pivot off the chalky Jazz. And I guess they're not that chalky on DK, but it's late and it gives you more pivot options if somebody else gets ruled out.
I see a question, favorite forward tonight on Yahoo. I guess it's any forward. I did the rankings. I'm pulling mine up. Jetty Osman is $12, $2 above the floor. It's an awesome play. Bogdanovich is 18, really good play. Isaiah Jackson, 18, really solid play. Evan Mobley at $30. I like that a good bit as well. Those are my favorite forwards, specifically on Yahoo. Will Harden and Morant locked.
By the way, Seth Curry is out.
Oh, geez. Do we have to? Is that going to change much? That might change a little bit. And they're without Furkan, so they might have a few wings down. But well, we'll wait for crunch time. We'll deal with that. We got to step aside and get out of here. Hey, Will.
Matisse Thybulle's probably going to play 30 minutes,
and he's going to take 4 shots, but he'll have 7 steals.
Yeah.
Covington for against the Lakers. Will, you like Covington tonight?
It's just okay.
So if you're playing Morant, what Nick should you run it back with? I think that's kind of the problem, right?
None. If you're only playing one, I'm good without it. No, I'm not running it back with a Nick, even if I get to Morant.
You don't always need a run back. I think it's sometimes helps,
like
of course, yeah.
If I'm playing 3 Cleveland guys, and especially if they're chalky, that's the situation where I want to make sure I have a run back. But if it's only one player, I'm fine with that as a one-off.
TJ, good luck tonight in your flag football game. Who is your comp? Who's your football comp? Who would you compare yourself to? Well, what position do you play? We don't have time for this. Why am I asking this?
I'm a slow receiver with great hands.
Are you the first to show up and the last to leave? And your coach's son?
I mean, yeah, maybe, but in my youth,
Will,
I never had deceptive speed though.
There you go. He's sneaky fast. That was Will. That was TJ. Check out TJ's Marvel podcast. What is it again?
Agents of Fandom.
There you go. That was basketball. That was producer Steve. Stay tuned for crunch time. If you guys are premium members on Rotogrinders, thanks for watching us on YouTube. Do like, do subscribe, do turn on notifications. We're out of here. Oh!